Hello, welcome to the Middle Ground. I'm Elizabeth. Thank you for joining me today. I hope everybody is staying cool. I know we have been having a heat wave, but a lot has been happening this week. So, a lot to cover this video. There was a NATO summit and NAFO, I'm not NAFO, I don't know how they like that to be pronounced. Also had a conference, which was interesting. And there's been a lot of issues raised that I want to address. So, to dive into it, Jake Sullivan had an address at the NATO summit, and it was crazy to see people arguing with his conclusion. His conclusion was that the US wishes to avoid a war with Russia. Therefore, at this time, it can't be seen including Ukraine in NATO while the war is going on. There were a lot of emotional driven arguments this week about why Ukraine needs to be in NATO now. Being in NATO does not required for Ukraine to win this war, particularly with the arguments that people were making. If Ukraine joined NATO, it would not mean full NATO escalation and involvement in fighting in this Ukraine war. So therefore, if their argument for why Ukraine should join NATO involves the argument that it will not require NATO forces becoming immediately involved in this war, then being in NATO in no way impacts the outcome of this war. I just feel like there are higher priorities. Let's focus on the things Ukraine needs to win the war and not emotional arguments about NATO. Another argument that I saw, which I thought was crazy, was an argument that it would not provoke Russia into war with the United States, which is false. Russia does have the narrative that there's this US colonization and expansion of NATO. Whether or not any of us in the West agree with that narrative, it is a narrative and point of view that Russia holds. Therefore, let's focus on the conflict that Russia has already created with Ukraine. Let's not increase the conflict by having Russia declare war on the United States. It's fully logical and the correct conclusion for Jake Sullivan to reach to acknowledge those circumstances. The other topic was, of course, the emotional toll that Ukraine has undergone in the past year and a half. No one is arguing with that. In fact, last summer, I looked ahead at the toll it was already taking, how hard it was already becoming, and I said, you will become emotionally weary. It is no surprise to anyone that war is hell. So we all are here understanding that Ukraine is undergoing something horrible, that the emotional toll of war is draining. And last summer I said, this is a reality of war. This is a reality that this psychologically can wear you down. And that is something that you have to account for, prepare for, because it's part of winning the war, is being able to adapt to that reality. And I don't want to say the word adapt in any kind of cold way. There will be a time for grieving. We will all grieve with Ukraine. But to get through the horrors that are on the table currently, I find it more helpful to focus on what we can do that is solution oriented and while acknowledging the great emotional toll that war is hell and that Ukraine is going through hell and the people of Ukraine are going through hell. However, Jake Sullivan changing his mind and having Russia declare war on the United States is not the solution to that reality. And then we had the NAFO conference that I see a lot of the same emotional arguments coming from NAFO, including Jessica Berlin. Ironically, it's really, I guess, not entirely strange that I'm in the same conversation now with Jessica Berlin. In my early 20s, I bought a book that she wrote about Europe, and which maybe inspired me to be interested in geopolitics. Although I have since discussed with her the very erroneous conclusions she made in that book. But I'm not seeing much different in the way she's approaching this situation. So then 20 years ago, she went along with the trend at the time, and she didn't think critically about it. And then she looks back and said, oh yeah, I was wrong. Well, now we're in this situation, and I see her responding with the emotional trends around her and not thinking critically about them. And so I think she can do better. Like, I would like to see Jessica Berlin evolve a little bit from my point of view. Because what it comes to start looking like is, and I don't want to disparage NAFO. It's wonderful that they are finding so many people to come together who are advocating for and supporting Ukraine. That they're building this community of individuals who are ready to take on the world for Ukraine. That's a wonderful spirit. I applaud those efforts and that spirit. But it becomes a little bit like armchair quarterbacks. If you watch a football game on television, you're not the coaches on the field. You don't have the playbook. You don't know what plays the team is going to run, why and when. And you just yell at the quarterback to throw the ball, even if throwing the ball would lead to an interception, right? That's the equivalent of the kind of criticism and emotional logic that I see coming from this NAFO support system. And I don't think it's very helpful. I've seen the media pick it up. I saw the Financial Times pick up a point of view that doesn't take in the big picture. There is a big picture. You all would be horrible observers of chess, because chess, you don't tell somebody what move to make that only calculates one move ahead. In chess, you have to calculate 10 moves ahead. And so if you have armchair quarterbacks, sorry, I know I'm mixing metaphors, critiquing a chess game, telling somebody that they're wrong, that they don't take a move based on one step now that will lead to losing the game 10 steps from now. That's the equivalent of what some of this criticism starts to look like. So I don't know how to say that any more clearly. I think one thing that I've seen this week that I love is keep posting videos of the troops in action. Those are the people we want to support. Those are the people we want to cheer on, let them know we're here with them. I saw a great trend this week of posting a lot of the equipment that has been sent by all of the different allies, countries, that's wonderful to see that these contributions that these countries are making are going into action. And like, there's some great success videos where you see, here's this system that was sent to us by Italy or Germany, and here it is in action, and it destroyed some Russian troops, right? That's what we want to see. Then we know, okay, our contributions are contributing. During World War II, you had all of these different legions from all of these different countries, right? So you knew that your troops were actually on the ground from your country contributing to the war effort. So we're not sending our troops, but we are sending this equipment. So it's great to see that here's this equipment that Germany sent, or the UK sent, or Italy sent, or Poland sent, and here it is being used, and here it is being successful in this war effort. That's tremendously bolstering. So I think those are all great focuses to have. We do want Ukraine clearly to have what it needs to make more expedited advances. But in terms of the politics, just stay out of it. I don't know. I trust Jake's instincts. Jake has been brilliant since he was 20. He's not going to suddenly stop being brilliant. Honestly, people. There was a Ukraine woman who just wanted to vent and let out her frustration and feelings of powerlessness. And as I started this video, we are not arguing that reality does not exist for the people of Ukraine. But as Jake said, the U.S. is in no way responsible for that reality. The U.S. has done the most to help to unify the allies for Ukraine, behind Ukraine. I mean, I understand that the correct objects to direct those feelings of powerlessness and hopelessness are toward Russia. So Russia is responsible for the feelings of powerlessness and hopelessness that people in Ukraine are feeling right now, not the United States. And it really puts the United States in a no-win situation if people in Europe are criticizing the United States for making the right move, but it doesn't look like the right move because nobody's looking at this as a chess match. And then at home, of course, the U.S. has internal dialogue where people say we should stop supporting Ukraine. 70% of Republicans in the House voted against support for Ukraine this week. So the U.S. doesn't need it, right? The U.S. is trying its best to focus its efforts on support. So we don't need both sides criticizing the U.S. for being wrong. I don't think that's how this works, honestly. So while our hearts go out to the woman who spoke to Jake Sullivan at the NATO conference and vented about her hopelessness, again, it's just not the right direction in terms of identifying who is responsible for that situation. So I have been encouraged and have encouraged others. The man who's going through the front lines, fixing up the houses that have been destroyed in Ukraine and the kitchens. That's a wonderful effort that can continue to bolster and alleviate that feeling of helplessness and powerlessness to give the people of Ukraine their lives back. Thank you very much for those efforts. Thank you again for the efforts that NAFO does make. I hope these comments have been constructive. So don't want to go ramble on for too long. I'll keep it short today. Thank you very much for joining me here at the Middle Ground. That's my week review. Have a great weekend.